Simon Sinek's new book, The Infinite Game, is definitely one of the best books I've read all year, and I am very excited to share with you some of the best ideas from this book. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss out. I release new videos like this one every week. Alright, let's jump right in. Simon begins his book by defining for us the differences between a finite game and an infinite game. In a finite game, there are known players, fixed rules, a defined endpoint, and a clear winner and loser. When you think of things like football or chess, these are typically what come to mind when we think of finite games. But there are also infinite games which contain the following. Players are able to come and go, the rules can change, there is no defined endpoint, and there can be no clear winner. Instead, the objective is to keep playing the game. Simon's argument in his book is that business and life are infinite games and should be played that way. Because when we play infinite games with a finite mindset, we set ourselves up not to lose the game, but rather we become unable to play altogether. The remedy then is to adopt an infinite mindset, and Simon shows us how to do that by putting 5 different elements into place. Element number 1 is to join a just cause. A just cause is a specific vision for the future that does not yet exist, and one that is powerful enough that it compels people to sacrifice for it. The author tells us the story of CVS and how they wrestled with the decision about whether or not to stop selling cigarettes in their stores. This single product brought in billions in revenue for them, but they knew if they wanted to promote healthy living for their customers and for the world at large, then they would have to make some difficult choices. The company took the risk and stopped all tobacco sales across their stores, which in the short term hurt their bottom line. But within months, they had more than made up for the lost sales from people buying products that were meant to help them quit smoking altogether. Additional health brands also started selling their products in CVS stores because they believed in their mission. And in nearly every state, cigarette sales dropped across the board. A just cause will shape our finite goals and the direction we choose to go because it matters that much. Now, we can only achieve this just cause if we know how to build element 2, which Simon calls trusting teams. In the late 90s, Shell Company wanted to build the most efficient and most expensive oil rig the world had ever seen. But for this project to be a success, they also had to hire the best team in the world to run it, which is where 2 drastically different people come into the mix. Rick Fox and Claire Newer. Rick was a man's man, while Claire was a Holocaust survivor who specialized in helping people connect with their feelings. She understood that in order for people to trust one another, they had to feel psychologically safe. If they didn't feel safe, they won't ask for help, they'll hide their mistakes, and they'll jeopardize the entire project. Rick and his grumpy team went through her exercises for months, which challenged them emotionally, but ultimately resulted in one of the best and most efficient teams in the entire oil industry. Weak cultures rely on rules, while strong cultures rely on relationships. A trusting team is the backbone of an infinite mindset. The third element Simon gives us is called the worthy rival. Most people use their energy to compare themselves against one another, but we need to learn how to use that energy to improve instead. Apple is a shining example of this because they have continued to find worthy rivals to challenge them every step of the way without being intimidated by their competitors. When an Apple executive was confronted by the fact that the Zune was better than their iPad in almost every technological way, he replied, "I'm sure it is." The Apple leader knew that they weren't just competing for technology, they were trying to change the world with their products. They wanted to change the world the way IBM had before them. And now they look to companies like Facebook and Google as their rivals in how they treat customer information. They are always looking for someone who can challenge them to be better, not just in the short term, but for decades to come. A great rival helps elevate our game, focus our process, clarify our cause, and rally our people. Rivals look for followers while competitors fight for customers. Why? Because in an infinite game, both rivals can achieve everything they want without the other player having to lose. The fourth element is what Simon calls existential flexibility. The way he defines it is as follows: the capacity to initiate an extreme disruption to a business model or strategic course in order to more effectively advance a just cause. Think of it as the ability to change even when it seems like change is dangerous in the short term. Walt Disney did exactly that. Even though his film company was wildly successful, he felt stuck, boxed in, and as though film wasn't the only way he could fulfill fulfill his cause of bringing more happiness to the world. So he left his company and started a new one. Bootstrapping his way with a handful of dedicated team members, Walt built what would become known as Disneyland because he wanted to bring the ideas in his movies to life. He gave the world a radical alternative to the theme parks and carnivals that were available in his time, and showed that he wasn't afraid to take a risk for what he believed in. If you aren't willing to blow up your company or your project, someone else will. You have to be willing to risk finite certainty for infinite possibility if you want to truly have a huge impact. Finally, the fifth element of an infinite mindset is the courage to lead, which is the willingness to take risks for the good of an unknown future. Just a few years ago, American Airlines gained a new leader who brought an infinite mindset to the company and helped gain every employee a raise. He wanted to show that the new leadership actually cared about their team. However, a number of factors outside of his control led to him having to make a costly decision. He could give his team another mid-contract raise, which would cost his company billions, or make Wall Street happy and refuse it. The CEO took the risk and gave his employees the mid-contract raise and established himself as someone who was truly playing the long game. It's important to note that this risky move made American Airlines one of Warren Buffett's favorite investments. Courage comes down to integrity. We have to be willing not just to follow the law, but to adhere to the higher standard of ethics. Simon tells us we must be willing to lead a cause, not just run a company. There you have the 5 elements of an infinite mindset. As I said in the beginning of this video, this was one of my favorite books that I've read this year, and I highly recommend it. You can find a link to buy the book in the description below. Now, if you found this video helpful, make sure you share it with someone. Thank you again for watching. My name is David, and I will see you next time, my friend.